Asked, sick of complicated legalese and outdated processes putting your family's legacy at risk? Then you can't afford to miss this explosive live stream event featuring Ari Brojde of Estateably. He will blow the lid off of the archaic practices still used by lawyers and reveal cutting edge strategies for modernizing generational wealth transfer. So, with that, welcome to the episode.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great to have a conversation about something that touches every single person on this planet. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's something that we all need to consider as estate planning, whether we want to or not. And getting it done correctly is really important. So, I was hoping you could give us a little bit of the backstory on Estateably and the problem you were trying to solve, and what caused you to decide to focus your life's work on this.
Absolutely happy to do so. By way of background, my background's in financial services. I worked for the majority of my professional career for two of Canada's largest financial institutions. And during that time, I heard a ton about this impending wealth transfer. I'm going to age myself a little bit. When I was in the business, we were talking about 30 trillion of assets that were going to pass hands. Today, we're looking at more like 100 trillion that is going to pass from one generation to the next in North America. And unfortunately, back in 2015, I got to experience this intergenerational wealth transfer firsthand when my grandmother passed away. About 2 years into the administration, I reached out to my first cousin, and we talk about the importance of estate planning. She had planned her estate quite well. She had a will, which obviously speeds things up. And I reached out to my first cousin, Alex. The will had named her three grandchildren as the sole and equal beneficiaries of the estate, and we all still to this day get along. And I reached out to Alex and I said, Alex, this is really strange. Grandmother left a very simple estate. She had a will. The will stipulated an equal distribution amongst three people that get along quite well, and yet it's been 2 years and we still haven't received our inheritance. Alex was studying human factors engineering at the time at Tufts University, and he said, well, it's one of two things. Either our family is completely incompetent and we can't navigate this process, or two, there's something larger at play. And so we both got intellectually curious, and given his background, he said, why don't we leverage the network of professionals that you've made in your wealth management career and ask these people if we would have retained their services, would this have gone any smoother? And regardless of which industry sector we spoke with, whether we spoke with trust companies, trust officers at the trust companies, attorneys at law firms, or CPAs at accounting firms, they all said the same thing, that this 2 year process that we had undergone was quite normal, that we weren't unique. And then when we asked why, we heard the same types of responses. Very little in the form of automation. Everything was a paper-based, manual, labor-intensive process. Very steep learning curves, particularly at the financial institutions in terms of the training that was required to get new hires up to speed. And thirdly, we learned about the fact that in order for an estate to be administered efficiently, there had to be good collaboration amongst the various stakeholders. And because all the technology that were being used at the time were on-premise based, old and clunky user interfaces, it was almost impossible to collaborate with other stakeholders. And so we felt there was a real opportunity to come in and disrupt this industry that hadn't seen anything in the form of innovation for 20 or 30 years. And fast forward to today, we're happy to say that we've helped over 17,000 families, or their attorneys and professionals, help them get through the probate process. We've tracked, and in that time, we've also tracked over $10 billion of assets that had been on its way to transfer to the next generation.
That's incredible. And at a high level, just so I understand correctly, so it's not a solution for procuring wills and trusts and things like that for the consumer on the front end. Their attorney would still do that, and there are plenty of professionals to do that. This is really a B2B tool for helping um, different companies within the industry do the actual transfer of the assets and to handle that end of it. So who would be the actual clients using Estateably?
Yeah, so Estateably is a B2B platform that sells exclusively to professionals. And those professionals can be typically from three sectors. One from the
Yeah.
financial institution sector. A lot of financial institutions have trust company arms that do this administration work. So, just for the audience that may not know the difference between planning and administration, planning is exactly what you said. It's the kinds of things that get done, the documents that get created as part of an estate plan, will drafting, trust deed drafting, setting up living directives and power of attorneys, using life insurance as tools to transfer assets or planning to transfer those assets. Where Estateably really comes in is on the administration side of things. So when someone passes away and the assets need to get transferred, that's where professionals will use Estateably. And so I mentioned our three main customer bases are financial institutions, law firms, and CPA firms.
Got it. Okay. So you've created the tech that they're using to actually get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest complaints that we heard, or biggest pain points that we heard during our discovery, as we kind of learned about the problems and pain points in the industry, where it was that customers expect a digital experience like they have in the rest of their lives, and they don't want delays in receiving their inheritance. So anything that the firms that we work with can do to help expedite the ultimate distribution of assets helps them and helps their end user.
Got it. So your solution is able to help the professional, get through that process quicker. And does it have any component that keeps in touch with the end consumer at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
so
or?
so we do have some very robust sharing functionality that we've built into the platform, which will allow
Sure.
those professionals to give glimpses of the platform into users' hands, so they can track the progress of an estate. They can do things that help them communicate a little better than playing the email ping pong. They can self-service in terms of understanding some of the aspects where they are. They can collaborate on the different tasks. It's not always the case that professionals will take on all the tasks with regards to the administration of an estate. There are things that an executor or the family has to do on their own, and so what the professional can do is, for those tasks that the professional isn't going to complete, they can organize, give the end user a kind of checklist and guidelines that they can follow. They can track and set deadlines to keep the estate on track.
Now, I know you've played a significant role in founding the company, but if I understand correctly, there was someone else behind the scenes there with you.
Yeah, so my as I mentioned before, my first cousin Alex Wilkin, who's a bit younger than I am. His background's in human factors engineering, and that's been he's been a very critical piece of the Estateably story, because given his background, he's helped a lot with his background in human factors engineering allows for us to be able to create products that humans like to use and streamline that process. It's been we're competing against legacy tools that have been in the market for 20 to 30 years that have old and clunky user interfaces. However, we're serving a market that is quite conservative and is rather resistant to change. So being able to create an interface that is modern, that is attractive, that is sleek, was really important in the adoption of our platform. And Alex played a huge role in that.
Yeah, got it. No, UX design is so important in getting a product to market and adopted at a high level. And it sounds like there's a lot of capability for different professionals to interact with one another through the platform. Maybe one professional does one part of the process, another does a different part of the
It's
process.
absolutely
And
crucial.
yeah,
The more professionals that can collaborate on a single platform where all the information is kept, the more streamlined and expedited the entire process can be. Is what we've
yeah,
seen.
no, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe you could give our listeners an idea, like how does the traditional trust and estate planning process work in terms of the administration end of things on, today versus where things are heading, in your platform? Maybe you could walk us through a day in the life of the two scenarios.
Sure. So typically, in order to help a customer through the probate process, an executor will be named in the will, and will become aware of that appointment will typically reach out to a financial professional or a legal professional and say, look, I've been named as the executor. I want to do the job because I've been asked to, and I obviously was close with the deceased, and I feel like I owe them this kind of this duty, and yet I have no clue on what I should be doing. Will you help me through this process? And so, from the professional standpoint, they need to start collecting a lot of information about the deceased, about the beneficiaries, about the executor, him or herself, about the assets that were owned at the time of death from the deceased, to create an inventory and value that inventory so that they can present it to the probate courts. Then they need to go through the court form process where they need to be able to input that information into court forms. It's a very manual process, as you could probably, or it had been a very manual process in the past. So you can imagine that in the 2 or 3 dozen court forms that were required to be submitted to the courts, you could imagine that the name of the deceased would have to be entered manually in each of one of those forms. So what Estateably does to relieve the effort required on inputs is to take a tell us once approach. So the professional will collect information about all those things that I mentioned one time, and then anytime that information is asked for throughout the form submission process, Estateably will pre-populate all of that information into the appropriate places in those forms, and so that forms can be generated with a simple click of a button. One of the major pain points that people have today in estate and trust administration is they need to track and do the fiduciary accounting. So beneficiaries have the right to ask to understand what has been going on throughout the course of the administration. And typically the trustee or the trust or the executor of an estate is required and has a duty to present them with a summary and a detailed analysis of all the financial transactions that have occurred throughout their time as administering the estate. Typically what happens today is that the professional who's helping out to perform this fiduciary accounting will get a stack of month-end bank and brokerage statements. And then they'll have to take every single financial transaction that appears on those paper statements and input them into some sort of accounting software. Then they'd have to allocate the transactions between principal and income, because beneficiaries can have entitlements to both or either one of those categories of things. And then they need to take all that information and massage it into a court formatted accounting report. That kind of work takes hours and hours every month for the people to do. And so what Estateably has done is it's using AI and natural language processing technology to extract those financial transactions. So we allow individuals, our customers, to simply upload financial statements and bank and broker statements into our platform. We're going to use that emerging technology to read and interpret those transactions. We're going to extract information of it. And then we're going to place those into an accounting table for easy manipulation. So at the end of the day, we're saving users, anywhere from 20 to 30 hours for every year that an estate or trust is outstanding.
Sure. So I'm sure, with this volume of data that security and compliance has got to be tops on your list. Can you talk to that point? I'm sure a lot of people are.
Yeah, there's a lot of sensitive information that's been put on our platform. That's being put on our platform. So obviously, security was the number one concern for us, and it has been since day one. So we've done everything possible to have the highest military grades of forms of encryption that is being used on our platform. We have a SOC 2 Type 2 type compliance, which is the high industry standard for working with financial institutions. We've gone through due diligence with financial institutions that take a 6-month period, because financial institutions obviously have a lot at stake. And so
Sure.
We've gone through the ringer, so to speak, in terms of our security posturing. We have penetration testing that's being done on an annual basis, and we've passed those with flying colors. And when there are low to medium, kind of risk items that are uncovered by our auditors, we're very quick to fix those. So and we also allow from on the front end side of things, there are some financial institutions that don't want their staff to be able to see some personal identifiable information. So we're able to obfuscate things like social security numbers, date of births, anything that they feel is sensitive. We can actually hide that on the front end. So yeah, security is something that's really important to our company. As obviously as we're seeing a lot of assets on our platform. As I mentioned, 10 billion has passed through our platform on its way to beneficiaries, and we feel like it's our duty to safeguard those the sensitivity of that information as much as possible.
Great. No, it sounds like you've checked all the boxes and actually gone beyond that in terms of, taking a lot of those different, you know, I guess taken not only just check the boxes, but also, taken to heart a lot of the details that need to be correctly put in place. So that's good
Absolutely.
to hear. So what role do you see client education playing in modernizing this industry? I guess that's a question that I was wondering.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing. I would argue that there's an information asymmetry that exists today amongst the general populace in terms of their understanding of of the various procedures that are required to maintain compliance with the laws and statutes of any given jurisdiction. And look, nobody needs, not everyone needs to go to law school to understand what those idiosyncrasies are. But I think it's important, and technology has an important role to play to making knowledge accessible to the end family that's going through this process. So I think that in the future you're going to see the use of AI to provide different interfaces for different users. So a expert user, a law firm, or a trust officer that can use Estateably may have different information presented to them around the specific statutes that are associated with the tasks that they need to accomplish, whereas an end user perhaps doesn't necessarily need to know the specifics of the statutes, but needs to be explained in plain language why it is certain tasks and procedures need to be followed.
And are there different, parts of the world where you've actually set your platform up to be compliant versus other areas where you just don't offer the solution?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to be completely global, but we started off in Canada. We're a Canadian-based company. Our first goal was to provide support for all 10 Canadian provinces, and we were the first cloud-based solution in Canada to do that. And I think that helped us a lot with forming our relationships with the financial institutions in Canada that have a footprint nationwide. Uh,
Sure.
then we also began offering support for today 14 different U.S. jurisdictions that cover about 70% of the U.S. population. There's two things that we need to do in order to get our product ready for market in those jurisdictions. The first is to automate the generation of the court forms. So every state, as you can imagine, sometimes even counties, will have different court forms that need to be submitted to the courts. They will not accept court forms from another jurisdiction. And so we have a document automation team that works to digitize those court forms and then make it available in our platform for our users. And the second thing is, as you can imagine, state administration is under the jurisdiction of state law, and so each state has its own laws and statutes and procedures on how an estate needs to be administered in that particular jurisdiction. And so Estateably works with local lawyers on the ground when we're planning to launch in any given jurisdiction to understand what those idiosyncrasies are and to build those into the task list that we serve up to the practitioners in those states.
Makes great sense. So, what would you say, as you're rolling this out, have been some of the, or I guess at a high level, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the trust and estate industry in terms of technology and technology adoption?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things that we've seen is just because of the relative lack of innovation in this space, there are a lot of financial institutions that are offering the services that are stuck on kind of legacy tools that are on-premise based and don't have APIs that will allow for a seamless integration or quick integration to happen. What we're hearing from our customers and prospective customers is they love the Estateably's interface. They see it as a huge benefit from the front end perspective for the front office service personnel. But to make things as seamless as possible, we need to integrate with back office systems, and often those back office systems were built in the 90s and they don't offer a robust set of APIs that are easily to connect to. So the integrations that we need to perform with those old systems can sometimes take time, and so that's been a challenge for us. Where we've created tools internally that allow us to get this job done quicker. But I think as we see more modern players come to the market in terms of the back office systems that financial institutions are now beginning to adopt as part of their own digital transformations, Estateably is really gonna benefit from them, and so will our customers.
Now, so what year did you found the company?
So we founded the company in 2018, and we launched our product in early 2021. So we've been in the market for about three and a quarter years now.
Okay, so just in the nick of time with COVID-19 in terms of
Yeah,
getting the product to
it was a
market.
really important moment for us. Our earliest adopters were law firms in Canada, and one of the things that happened with COVID was this was a kind of in-person people coming and working in the office on computers that had the estate software installed on it, and they couldn't access their files, and so they needed to turn to a cloud-based solution. And as crazy as it sounds, in 2020, that being in the cloud was a unique selling proposition. That was the case in our industry, and so we had a massive influx of customers seek out cloud-based solutions for their estate and trust administration practices, and luckily Estateably was there with a solution for them.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the large number of firms using the solution and the tremendous amount of assets that have been transferred. Where have you seen the biggest adoption in terms of users?
In terms of geography, or in terms of
No, in terms of the types of companies using the solution.
yeah, so I would say that law firms are the biggest users of Estateably today, although that's beginning to change. We've just signed a big agreement with National Bank of Canada, who's going to use Estateably throughout their offices in Canada to power their trust and administration practices. So that's great, and we have deals in the works with other financial institutions that are big, top 100 global banks. So we're excited to be launching, and sharing information about those as those deals close. But also, we've received a lot of great feedback from CPA firms in the U.S. One of the things that we're seeing more and more of today is increased litigation because of this great wealth transfer and the complexity that may exist amongst families. And so one of the ways to reduce the amount of litigation is to be as transparent as possible with regards to the fiduciary accounting. And so Estateably has built a very robust fiduciary accounting solution that is today being used by several top 50 CPA firms in the United States. And so we're really excited to be growing our market share amongst accounting firms as well.
So were there things that consumers on the front end can do that make the entire process easier in the estate transfer,
Yeah, I
process
mean,
for
I think you spoke
attorneys?
about it a little earlier. You mentioned it yourself, Michael. Is the better an estate is planned, the easier it is to administer it. And
Got
so
it.
anything that individuals can do on the front end to create a robust estate plan that includes multiple documents, not only wills but trusts, if applicable, life insurance, transfer upon death accounts. Would be very helpful. Also, letting family members know what you own, where they can find information about it. I mean, today, one of the difficulties of everyone being gone digital and paperless is that it's harder to discover what people owned. Back in the old days, executors used to just wait on the doorstep and wait for the mail to come in so that they could piece together the
Right.
assets that were owned. There was an account that was at Verizon or AT&T, and here's a Bank of America statement, so I know that the deceased owned an account there. Today, because we're paperless, it's very difficult for that discovery. So anything that a deceased or a soon-to-be deceased person can do in the planning process to let the family know where things are is super helpful. And obviously, it's important to keep the professionals that you work with abreast of your plans. And finally, I think, and we've seen pretty bad stories with this, is when you're including or appointing people in the will to be your executor or the guardians of your children, to let them know that that's your intention, because the worst thing that can happen is that they decline that appointment, and then you're left with perhaps someone who you don't want managing those things, managing them.
Makes a lot of sense. So, you kind of alluded to it with everything going digital, but I'm sure with assets that might be on the blockchain or what have you, that probably adds a whole other level of complexity to peeling back the onion to figure out what assets people have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And can you share some examples of how the solution has helped simplify some really complex, scenarios that some of your clients would normally need to go through by hand?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the biggest pain points we understood early on in the company's existence when we asked people, like, if you could have if you could have technology solve one pain point, what would that be? And we would hear stories from trust officers and legal assistants who would say, look, at the end of every month, I get a stack of investment and bank brokerage statements. And my job is to sit and take those financial transactions that appear on those statements, on those paper statements, and essentially bring them into the digital world to take those transactions, enter them manually into an accounting software where then I have to manipulate the information that's contained on there to include information about whether those transactions were related to income or were they related to principal, because beneficiaries of trusts can typically have access to one or the other, sometimes both. And then if a formal accounting is required, it has to be done in a specific court-approved format, and that job takes about 40 hours for every year that an estate is outstanding. And so, one of the things that Estateably built was a financial statement parsing and document reading solution whereby our customers can simply upload PDF statements of banks and brokerage statements at the month end. We're going to read those transactions using emerging technologies. We're going to input those automatically into our accounting function, and then very easily allow for those professionals to do the work that they need to do to create those 30 to 40 page reports, saving them hours and hours of time.
That makes a lot of sense. So, is the solution licensed to each firm based on the number of clients that they have, or just an overall license, or is it variable based
It
on?
works differently for for big enterprise customers versus small and medium businesses.
Okay.
But fundamentally, we charge on a per file basis. Um, one of the things we learned early on was that people are aware of this great wealth transfer that's occurring, and they want to be able to service more and more customers throughout this wealth transfer process. Financial institutions, especially, see the wealth transfer process as key, as being able to offer a robust service during this wealth transfer as key to retaining assets as these assets get transferred to the next generation. So
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
So it's really in their best interest to make sure everything is done smoothly and stays on their platform.
absolutely.
Oh, that's great. So it's really something that a financial institution could offer as a benefit to their clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the data that we've shown, that we've uncovered, suggests that the financial institutions customers need three things during the estate administration. Their first and biggest pain point is when they're named as executors, or if they're responsible for helping administer the estates. The first thing that they're doing is they're often going to Google because they have no idea where to start. And one of the things that Estateably can allow financial professionals to offer is a task list that is compliant with the jurisdiction that the decedent lived in. And so it gives them a complete roadmap of what are the things that they need to do to make sure that no stone is left unturned. And that's a huge relief for families. The second thing that we understand that they need is to relieve the administrative burden. One of the things that data shows is that the amount of administrative work that is required by an executor to settle the estate, it takes about 520 hours on average. And so anything that an advisor can do to be able to relieve that administrative burden through automation, the creation of letters to close accounts, things like that, is huge. And that's something that Estateably offers. And the last thing is helping with the reducing the professional fees associated with settling an estate. Today, those fees can run up anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 if multiple professionals are being used to aid in the process. And because of the automation that Estateably allows, it will significantly reduce the amount of fees that are paid to professionals, because Estateably allows and automates about half the work that needs to get done.
So really, a professional can magnify their efforts by having a tool like this in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's neat. And how do you see estate planning evolving as things become more digitized in the years to come?
Yeah, I think that you're going to see in the next several years a tremendous adoption of technology amongst the different players in the space, whether they're financial institution, legal firms, or accounting firms, and that's going to make the planning process more accessible to different customers that today may be priced out of the market. And so I think that with tools like AI, natural language processing, even blockchain, perhaps you're going to see democratization of estate planning and estate administration services, and it's going to help with the speed at which assets can get transferred to beneficiaries who are going to ultimately benefit from all the technology gains that we're going to see in the space over the next decade or so.
No, that's great. It makes a lot of sense. Where do you see Estatably fitting into the market in terms of, what would you say if you were to look at some of the other solutions that are out there now? Would like if you were to bullet point one or two, key competitive advantages or offerings that your solution has that kind of set it apart. What are
Yeah,
those?
it's a great question. And I think what we've seen in the market is we see our competitors offering different components of a complete solution. And I think what Estateably really does to set itself apart is it offers all those different components in one platform. So there are companies that are very good at doing document automation. So, taking information in a database and being able to generate court forms. And there are others that do fiduciary accounting really well. Estateably is really the only solution that we know of in the market that combines those two things, because there are two critical components of the administration of an estate, and Estateably has become this kind of one-stop shop for professionals to do their work entirely and to be able to collaborate with their customers.
Great. And it sounds like you've had some pretty quick development in terms of some of the new tech. Are there some, solutions or things that you've had on your roadmap that you've released recently that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, so I mentioned the recent advent of the DocuVision project, which is the bank and brokerage statement. But we've also heard from our customers the importance of being able to cull a list of from a list of different tasks. So one of the things that we've learned throughout our 3 years of being in the market is standardization is very important in order to ensure compliance with the tasks that are required to get completed per jurisdiction. But the fact of the matter is that every estate is unique across the board. And so the ability to be flexible is super important, to be able to add tasks on an ad hoc basis to make sure that no stone is unturned. And so we've released this feature called task templates, which allow for individuals to insert a bunch of tasks that are particular to the unique circumstance of an estate, and add that to the kind of universal tasks that need to be completed. And that's been something that we're really proud to have announced, really proud to have released, and we're seeing tremendous pickup of usage of that particular feature.
Neat. And are there things that you have on the roadmap that you're looking forward to releasing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that from a roadmap perspective, we're going to be continuing to revamp the tasks that we have available. One of the things that nobody offers today is a personalized task list based off the unique information of an estate. And so today, and you may have gone through this, Michael, yourself, and I know I have personally.
Sure.
When you lose someone, a financial institution always wants to jump in and give you a resource to help you. And so they offer these kind of checklists that you need to follow, but they're often too generic to be useful. And so the ability for us to be able to generate very personalized task lists that reflect the unique nature of an estate is going to be something that we're really focused in on in the short term. The other thing is that has been asked for by customers is to relieve them of the duty of kind of inputting information. They want to give those to they want to put that in the hands of the executor or of the family members. And so we're going to be shortly creating shareable links that will allow for customers to easily input information into the system to really speed up the entire process.
Makes a lot of sense. So those seem like a couple of exciting things to be looking forward to. So overall, I think that really gives us a good high level view of the solution. But for any of our listeners that are looking to bring their tech up to a modern day and age, what are the different ways that they can get up and running with a solution that would fit their needs?
Yeah, so I mean, I think technology, as I mentioned before, is going to become an ever increasing importance in practices, and there are no shortage of tools available in the market. I would advise anyone who's interested in the Estateably solution to visit our website at www.estateably.com. You'll find a host of videos, value propositions, of time savings that Estateably can allow for the practice to have. And if some of your listeners are going through the estate administration process, and please feel free to mention Estateably to their professionals who could certainly benefit from the Estateably platform.
Great, and we'll leave a link in the show notes for anybody that would like to get up and running on the solution. But I really appreciate you taking the time out to join us on the Software Spotlight today. From Estateably, we've had Ari Brojde, and I really appreciate you taking the time out. Coming up on our next episode, we'll have Eric from ShopX. He's the founder and CEO of that company, which is a pioneering SaaS platform offering blockchain as a service, and really a different tech on or a different angle on blockchain, with a vision to democratize blockchain technology. Eric has built ShopX into a powerful solution that enables businesses to seamlessly integrate decentralized applications and services. Eric will join us to discuss the transformative potential of blockchain and ShopX's innovative approach. So be sure to join us for that episode coming up tomorrow afternoon. And be sure to visit softwareoasis.com to access our free weekly newsletter and sign up for our free marketing strategy template, as well as to register for our upcoming webinars. We have a webinar next Wednesday at 1 p.m., and that is on technology and education. So that will be coming up next Wednesday at 1. And